for hikes and stuff
No, I mean, we
regularly?
do, but, like, I see you every week. I certainly don't see her every week,
Oh,
I'll
oh,
see
yeah,
her
yeah.
every few months. Um,
But it's in person.
but it's in person.
We only get internet
Yeah,
Janet.
you only get internet Janet, but
She gets real life Janet.
yeah, and it's just a lot of just her touching my knees and my feet, just all the things you guys don't get to
Oh.
ever see or be part of.
What?
It's
Hold on.
all
What
it's all chest
what
down.
just happened? I wanted to yes and that and really and then I was like, there's no way I do this and it doesn't sound creepy, so I'm just gonna
Yeah,
stop. Yeah.
that's correct.
Yeah.
That's what we call a setup,
Yeah.
unfortunately.
You just tried to get me canceled right here live
Trying so
on the air.
hard.
I know, but
Ugh,
I'm too smart for you.
you are too smart.
Oh, man, I feel like this is the stuff you do. Like we've landed last night and then I've already had to go pack because I go to work tomorrow and then immediately from work
I
get
know,
back
I
on a
can't believe you
plane
have
and
to go
go
to quickly shoot for that, but
back to
worth it.
Dallas, shoot, then
To
back on
see
a
Kim
plane to
and
come
Ed
back
for
to
a second,
here.
I guess.
Yeah, I hope I get to see them. I have
And I
no
was gonna
idea.
say, suddenly, as I was saying that, I, like, trailed off because I was like, "Actually, I don't know if, like, they might just already have recorded that," you know?
Yeah, I know that I'm
Mhm.
sure they shot with him already. The producer's being real cagey about it, so I have a feeling they're gonna like try to set up like a surprise. So then I like don't because I was asking him today. I was like, "What do you need for wardrobe? Like, what do you want
Yeah.
me to like? I'm packing. What do you want me to bring?" And they're like, they're like, "Well, what do you want?" I was like, "Well, I was gonna just wear like this black flannel shirt that I have, but I know it's
Uh-huh.
gonna be like 90 degrees, so we're not shooting outside, right?" And they're
Mhm.
like, "Nope." And I'm like, "Are we in a studio or in like a stage house or?" And he wouldn't answer,
Hmm.
and he's being real, like and I'd even asked him, like, "Can you send over, like" because this is a case I covered 8 years ago.
Yeah.
I was like, "Can you just" I was like, "I don't need, like, to know the questions, but if you could send
Fair.
me a beat sheet to show me, like, just kinda what general
Yeah.
topics you wanna talk about," and they didn't send me that, so, like, I don't know what the fuck I'm walking
Hmm.
into.
Okay.
But I had
The
a
funny
feeling
what
I
they
was
don't
like
realize is that you even if you knew everything, you'll still cry. So if they're trying to, like,
right.
squeeze emotion out of you, they needn't worry. You could know, everything going in and still cry.
Yeah, and what they don't know is because, if their plan was to try to, like, set up where, like, I get to see Ed or whatever, like, I'm going to fuck it up because I'm gonna get in at 6 o'clock tomorrow, and the first thing I'm gonna do is call Ed and see if they wanna go to dinner.
Right.
Like, so if
Well,
they
that's their
want
fault for not sharing anything with you, so
yeah, so we'll
that's
see how
funny.
that shakes out. Yeah, I'm a little nervous about because it's, like, it really, like as I've done a couple pre-interviews with them, like, talked to the producer a few times about several things more for background than, like, really pre-interview, but I'm like,
Yeah.
"Fuck, I don't remember the names," but, like, it was coming back to me because he was asking me about certain people to, like, interview and stuff, and I was like, "Oh, yeah, that's this person, and they said this, and they did this, and this." So, I don't know. I guess we'll shake out, but I'm just weird. I've been a part of a lot of projects. The first one that's been, like, so, like,
Yeah.
top secret about
Yeah.
everything.
Huh.
So
Hmm.
so
Well,
we
we'll
shall
see.
see. Tool Girl said she bailed early on Sunday and missed the trivia. You did not miss the trivia. So it was like, so we were in Josh's, he's got a really cool space. He's got like his office and studio, and then like way down the hall, he's got like a big, like 2-room kind of suite. And it's like their research lab. Like one room has got a huge, I'm so jealous of it, like huge conference table and like nothing but bookshelves with binders. Like Josh is so organized, it's insane.
Mhm.
And then kind of like a loungy type area, but
Mhm.
they're like connected with a door in between. And so the way they did trivia, they like split into like, I don't know, 3 or 4 groups of like 7 people.
Mhm.
And like 2 of the groups or 2 or 3 of the groups were in the other room, which is where Dr. Scott was running the computer thing, and they had like the questions on the screen and they were reading to them. And then the other group, the one me and Mata and Jennifer Hill was part of it. Jenna can't, last name just escaped me.
But
Uh,
Jenna.
Listener Jenna. Um, we were all over on that side along with a bunch of other people. Eric Carter Landine was over there. I don't remember who else was there. Anyway, but our team was over there. So they're reading questions. We can't hear them.
Hmm.
Like we can't hear them at all. And there's a screen that you could, if you look through the door, you could see the screen, but there was always somebody standing at the door, usually fucking Mata, because he was live on YouTube and he was like wandering around with his with his phone and stuff. And then it was like they were going so fast. They were like, okay, what is this? Somebody relayed us. Like, so they want to know which whoop, they're on the next one. We're like, hey, like, it was going so fast.
Oh,
It was going
no.
and Jenna Marie. That's what that. Thank you,
Jenna
Susan.
Marie.
But yeah, so that was that. And then there were so many people in that little space. It was so like we're sweating to death. Like finally, like I think they quit 10 questions or everybody's like, we're done. It's too hot.
Got it.
Susan said she was in the big room and had no trouble hearing. Jealous. Not me. I was
Yeah.
sitting on a couch far away, couldn't hear anything.
I
Sweating
didn't
it
hear
out.
anything either.
But I mean, it was just
I
such a
also
fun
wasn't
time.
there. I was walking around.
I certainly hope that if Josh does it again next year, that I'm able to go. You know, it's hard with my schedule of school. This happened to be like this was our fall break weekend, so I was able to.
Well, he can just plan it around that.
Yeah,
I'm
that's
sure
what he
there's
should
no
do.
other factors
Plan
at
around
play.
me.
Yeah.
But man, that area though, the Berkshire, it's like everything, like the little towns, the history there is really cool because it's like what Becky is looking. She's like, all this architecture reminds me of like England. I'm like, because this was England when those buildings were
New
built.
England?
Yeah,
Yeah.
This was until 1776. This was kind of part of England. Like it was
Yeah.
like they owned
Yeah.
it. They were responsible for it.
Totally.
So it was like that
That's
same
cute.
influence, but all the really old architecture and history and stuff that was there, especially when we went up to Bennington, Vermont, checked out a bunch of shops and stuff up there.
Cool.
It's just cool. Really, really cool.
Well,
Fun. You're staring like you're thinking about saying something.
chance to do it.
Nope, I'm done.
You're
Are
done.
we on YouTube? Do we switch over?
Yeah, we're switched
Okay.
over.
I was just making sure because that's one of the questions, and I think I missed that.
I need a tinkle.
All right.
So you guys talk amongst yourselves for a
No, I
minute.
kind of need to too.
Sweet.
I know that.
I'll just
You,
talk.
you don't get to be done, Zach. You have to
I
talk.
know.
No, I can wait. I can wait. I'll wait till you get back, and then
It's
I'll quickly go.
It's fine.
I'll
It's
wait.
fine. Has nothing to do with the trip, but I had a very alarming thing happen to me today. I have this app. It's called Telegram. And
Oh
it's
yeah,
like
Telegram.
like a messaging app or
In the
whatever.
news right now.
Oh, is it? I don't know anything about it.
Yeah.
So our comedy class used it for communication, so I downloaded it for that. And anytime like anybody downloads it that's in my contacts, it like pops up as like so and so joined Telegram.
Oh yeah, sure.
And like 2 hours ago, my friend joined Telegram, except for my friend has been passed away for the last 3 years.
Whoa, what?
So I don't know if it's like somebody that like if they reassigned the number,
Oh.
you know, like
Yeah.
it's very alarming to just
That's
see like
wow, what a strange shock.
his
to
name pop up.
Yeah.
Yeah, like yep, my
Oh
friend Gary.
my. Oh
He
no.
passed away like 3 years ago, and it just popped up now saying he joined Telegram. So I don't know if his wife has his number or they just reassigned his phone number. I don't know, but it was that's weird. It was just a weird feeling. Not cool with it.
I'm sorry about that. That would jar me very much and like
Yeah, it was very strange.
changes the mood of the
My
thing.
bad.
All right, I'm gonna pee. I didn't want to leave my buddy alone.
Thank you.
Okay.
Somebody cares about me.
Why do I get that? That's not nice. I spent 4 days with you.
You sure did. I love you. I appreciate that. No, I was just telling Janet, which sucks. I have this app called Telegram. It's like a messaging app.
Yeah.
And anytime that like when your contacts joins it, if they're contacting your phone, it'll say like so and so joined.
Yeah.
And my friend joined like 3 hours ago, except for he's been passed away for 3 years.
Oh yeah, that's a number got signed to some, or his wife's using the phone
Yeah.
or something. But yeah, that's got it'll jar you.
Yeah, when you see his name pop up, and you're just like, oh.
So I had that happen with my friend Mondo that had passed away. Gosh, it's been 8 years ago now. It was like 2 years later. I got a phone call, like my phone's ringing from Mondo, and I'm like, what in the actual hell is going on here? And I'm like, hello? And it was his son calling me. I didn't realize his son had taken his number. He was calling me about something, but he was calling. I was like, Jesus Christ. I'm like, I gotta change this. It said Mondo was calling me, and it freaked me out a bit.
Yeah, that's terrifying.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I missed you guys.
I see Lilius is in here. We met Lilius too, didn't we?
Yep, we did.
Yep.
We met Lilius and we met Tool Girl, who is Teresa. And Jennifer Hill was there, who we've met before.
Why is my mouse freaking out right now?
Susan. Have we met Susan before? Or is this the first time we met Susan? Susan, have you met you before? I'm sorry, I suck. Both Susans.
Do we meet both Susans?
We met both Susans this weekend, but I don't know if we met them before. Kathy, you could have been there and I just didn't see you.
Just was looked right over the top.
Right over the top of you.
Yeah, I don't remember if I've met this. I don't think I've met Susan Dietrich before. Yeah, and I don't think I'd met Susan Preiser either.
It was a pleasure. It was a pleasure. Kathy, never saw you. I'm sorry. You could have been there walking around.
There, now my mouse is working.
Josh, I don't know. I would like to try to get down there, but I don't know if I will.
Sounds like it's pretty hard to get in. Bob Mata has a seat reserved, so he's able to get in, but everybody else is having to like wait outside. Which I gotta imagine at some point that, well, maybe not, because there's so much media that's trying to like wait outside to get in. Because what they say, like 25 seats is all they're allowing in.
Grayson, it's a whole lot more fun to meet me than it is Bob. Just ask Josh Beachy. Josh will tell you I'm way more fun than Bob.
Yeah, I'm not fun at all.
I know. You just yell at me.
Yeah.
He was so mad. I took a bite of his donut yesterday.
No.
2 days ago. I don't even know. And he was so mad. He was so mad.
I almost divorced Becky over the trail mix again.
I'm telling you, I said that. I sent that to you, didn't I? That I was like, we had like 17 threats of divorce between the two couples.
Listen, Bobby does not share food, and my wife knows it. And the thing is, neither does she. She would, and she does this shit to me all the time. We were at the airport at our layover, and it was right at like dinner time, and we're trying to find something. I'm like, we go into a little shop. She's with me, and I like got this thing of trail mix. And I was like, do you want anything? She's like, and she always is like, no, I don't want anything. I'm like, you sure you don't want anything? No, I don't want anything. Okay. So get on the plane. And then we're like halfway there. And I get up and I get my bag of trail mix down. This is my dinner. I've been planning all day for my trail mix. I open it up, grab a handful of it. And she just reaches over and she knows that like it's all in one motion. Like reaches over, grabs a big handful of it and goes, oh, whatever. You don't need all that.
Yeah.
Michelle witnessed it too.
Like rage boiling inside me.
Michelle witnessed all of it and she saw it.
That's tough.
Yeah, they gave Bob the wrong donut and he just was mad holding it like this. So I just snatched it from his hand, took a bite of it. And then
again, I'm so particular about like
really melted him down.
Especially because like generally, like I mean, I ate like a hog this weekend. I like I felt so bad when I said like when I saw the pictures of me on stage, I was like had that like traveling ate too much giant belly bloat, and I left and on top of it, I left my shirt unbuttoned for some reason. So it was just like belly. But yeah, we were on our way to the airport yesterday. And we like stopped at Dunkin' because at that East Coast, like there's no Starbucks, it's Dunkin'.
Yeah. Stopped
at Dunkin'. We all got a sandwich and a coffee. And I was like, ooh, I would like a single blueberry donut, please. I love their blueberry cake donuts. I'm just like, one little bit. And they gave us the donut first, and I grabbed it. I set it on the floor. And then they gave it the rest of our food. We started going down the road. I ate all my food first. And I'm like, now I'm ready for my donut. And I pulled my donut out, and it was a plain glazed donut.
Oh,
so I'm furious. I'm sitting there holding this thing. I'm like, how do they fuck this? Yeah, I'm just going on and on. And Zach just reaches over, grabs it, and takes a bite and puts it back in my hand.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a tradition in my household. When Brandon makes his sandwiches, if he turns his back for a second, I'll nibble a little piece out of it, and then he turns around. He's like, babe.
Yeah, that's divorce worthy. You have a hard out in 44 minutes, so we need to start.
I guess we better get started.
Hold on. Last thing.
I don't know what all this raccoon stuff is in the chat, but raccoons are my love.
I'm just going to
now approve of all of it.
Chastise all the people of the Berkshires for voting on pizza because their number one voted pizza was not great.
Number one pizza in North County.
Bullshit.
Not the best. All right, ending pregame. Pre-gamers, we love you guys. Bye-bye.
Thanks, pre-gamers.
Oh, bye, guys.
And are you recording now?
Well, I certainly can be. There I go.
1, 2, 3.
Ahoy, friends. Thank you for tuning in to Truth and Justice. Bob and I are back from the Berkshires, and you are listening to the Friday follow-up for Season 15, Episode 17, The Alibi Witnesses. This week, Bob broke down multiple witnesses to Jody's whereabouts. The night in question. We have a lot to talk about, and Bob, Janet, and I are here to talk about it all. What?
You happy with that?
Yeah, good enough. I'm happy. Erica will make it sound wonderful. Erica, thank you.
Thank you, Erica.
Did you give Erica her prize?
I haven't yet.
Sorry, Erica, I just ruined your prize.
I popped in at lunch real quick today because I forgot to get something that I needed to get. And she was here. She was sick yesterday and is still not feeling good. And I was like, I just got that COVID email. So we talk, and then so after school, when we usually meet up, I'm like, hey, are you done with your stuff? And she's like, yeah. I'm like, how about this? Considering I might have COVID and you might have mono, why don't we not be in the same room? So she left before I got back.
First listener comes up with a little gift bag and says, here. We're like, oh, thank you. It's for Erica.
Yeah.
Yay! That's what I like to hear.
Erica, when you're listening to this, there's a gift for you
How's
that
that,
I'll
Erica?
give you when I get back from Dallas. We need to get going. Okay. All right. Yes, that was Zach and I had an amazing trip to the Berkshires this weekend. It was a wonderful 4 days. The weather was perfect. The air was beautiful. Josh Hallmark did an amazing job with the Berkshire Podcast Festival. Can't wait to do it again next year. If you didn't make it, make sure you go next year. If you want to hear all about it, check out the pregame. We talked about it there. But we've only got 42 minutes to get this thing done before Janet has to go. So we want to get right into it. Do want to do a little bit of housekeeping, just some scheduling things to let you guys know what's coming up. Because I just realized when I was looking at our schedule from Audio Boom that we have a dark week coming up. Totally forgot about it, like last year or whatever. I must have said I'm taking this week off when they asked us for our off weeks in there. So the week, it's a couple of weeks ahead from now. But the week of November 15th, there's no episode. So there'll be no episode on the 15th and the 17th. So between now and then, we've got this Sunday, 2 days, we're going to have the interview with Jakari Lariat. Sorry. Could not remember how to pronounce his name. Drew a blank. Jakari Lariat interview that we did. I recorded about a week or so ago. We're going to hear that interview about an interaction he had with the police in the city of Benton Harbor. And then we're going to get back into the trial, and we're going to have an episode where we're breaking down the closing arguments of the prosecution. And then the next episode, we're going to cover the closing arguments of the defense and the rebuttal of the prosecution. And that is going to kind of wrap up the trial. Erica was looking today to go through, was there any testimony that we missed? And there's a couple little things here and there, but nothing that's really super relevant. It was like, we didn't cover Rolanda Ware's testimony, who that was Mario's girlfriend. Her testimony is a couple pages long, and she testifies that, that she saw that Mario brought that gun home. There's just not a whole lot of meat to it. So we may do kind of a hodgepodge where we piece that stuff together. Or we're not sure exactly where we're going. I got some witnesses I'm trying to reach out to. I've made contact with a juror. But as of right now, we're kind of getting to the end of the trial, and Erica's going to start tomorrow going through the prosecutor's file and the whole thing and see if there's anything we missed that we need to cover. And we're going to be working to see if we can get some people to talk. I've got a list of people I want to speak to continue on with the new investigation. So all of that's coming up now, but we are getting closer to the end of the season, barring anything new coming up. We've got some announcements that we'll talk about when we get to the end, but we could be a month or two away unless something breaks open here coming up. Or I'm also waiting. So this Friday, I got an email today. The Michigan State Police asked for an extension to this Friday, the 25th, for that FOIA. So we may have more information in that FOIA request. So just letting you guys know where things are at with that. And another thing that I would like to do, which I put this offer out every season. I haven't had anybody take me up on it in a long time. But I always like to ask anybody that, after hearing all this, believes that Jody is guilty. I would like to invite any one of those people to come on and have a cordial conversation, not necessarily a debate, just a discussion where we can talk about why they feel, so they can make sure they're presenting why they feel why Jody's guilty compared to why I feel that Jody is innocent. And we can have that conversation. We're still weeks away from that, but if there's somebody that's interested in having that conversation on the air, please reach out to me in any way that you want to, either through email or on social media or whatever, and we'll try to make that arrangement. So all of that's what we got coming up. But again, we still have a few weeks to go get through and at least wrap up the trial before we move into new investigation. So that's what's happening now. This week, we covered, we really, to me, it felt to me, not necessarily to everybody, I didn't see that anyone's mind was changed based on what I've seen on social media. But this episode was kind of the nail in the coffin of the alibi to me. It seemed to completely seal, in my mind, really sealed the deal on Jody's alibi. What did you guys think after listening?
What I'll say is earmuffs. What the fuck? They didn't call Princella back ever?
Yeah, no.
That floored me when I heard that part where they just she continued to try to get a hold of them and they just never called her back.
Yeah, it didn't surprise me. The only reason it didn't surprise me to hear that, I've heard from her that that she never talked to them. I didn't get the real details until getting into the trial transcript. But the fact, once I heard LaShawn tell me that they came in and talked to him that morning, and he told him Jody was working And, they said the murder happened at this time. And he's like, oh, well, Jody was here. And then they continued on with this. It didn't surprise me one bit that they had no interest in
they don't want to find bad evidence.
talking to anybody from the restaurant.
It's crazy to me. Absolutely crazy to me. Go ahead, Janet.
No, I mean, I agree. I didn't, it's, it's very helpful if you are already of the opinion that this is not an episode that's shocking, right? It's not full of surprises because
Right.
it's like we knew that this alibi existed. We knew about these folks. And now we're just sort of seeing how it played out on trial. But yeah, I mean, that's kind of what look, I thought I really liked how you came at it. I really appreciated and respected the fact that you said that there are people who are working so hard to disprove you when they could be potentially working in a what I don't want to say cleaner because that sounds disrespectful of me, in a way that would advance facts. And that doesn't don't perceive it as necessarily doing that. And yeah, I appreciated that very much. And I just kind of continue to go, well, I mean, as you were talking about that, all I could think was like, I mean, I think people are just gonna say that all these people are lying. Like, that's just, you know what I'm saying? I just kind of sighed and thought, I think, I mean, I would just assume that if you've already decided Jody's guilty, then the only thing you can do with this really is say, well, they're all lying together. And I just imagine someone being like, well, Bob, you said that everyone, was lying about putting Jody at the scene. So why can't all of these people be lying about, that why can't this be a conspiracy to keep Jody away from being fingered as the killer,
Yeah,
So
well, and the reason is I've seen those comments come out, and there's a distinct difference. In that case, there's evidence that they're lying, right? So we see, with the Miles family, we see what they told police initially. We see what they told police the second time. And then we see what they told police or what they testified to at trial. And those stories change the whole time. It conflicts with the other evidence. So you got Canvas saying Mario's over here, but they're saying Mario's saying, it's not like we're just pulling out of a hat that these people are lying. There's evidence to support that. In this case, as far as the alibi goes, we have one piece of solid evidence of actual physical evidence, and that is the timesheet. And there's people, of course, that still question the timesheet. But so then, okay, well, what evidence do we have for the timesheet? Well, Sean said day one, talked to McGinnis, told McGinnis when Jody was working, knew that was past the time when the murder happened. And then they don't interview them again until 2 weeks before the trial. They all tell him the same thing. He left around midnight. Jody left around midnight. Or Joseph, as they said that, left around midnight. It's the same thing. That what they all said lines up with what the timesheet says. Lines
except
up
for
with
that
what
one
Jody
person
says.
who you said was kind of all over the place, and you said, if you're going to try to poke holes in this, then it's this woman who's.
Well, yeah, but even Nadia.
Nadia
didn't have anything to do with the timesheet. That had to do
absolutely
with after Jody got home,
right?
But there was a conflict between her and Cheryl about who picked up when, and how that all shook out. But as far as the work goes, everything is consistent. Like, so there's no evidence to support the idea that these people are lying or that they're all wrong.
Right.
You can wish that, you can hope that. I do want to address, like Chris just said in the chat, that she said, I'm always bummed to hear that I'm not being intellectually honest to lean guilty.
Chris, I'm
I
not
never
talking
said
about
that.
you, Chris.
Yeah.
I'm also not saying that. I'm saying the people who work vigorously to prove Bob wrong, not to prove that someone is guilty, but in what appears to be an effort to just make Bob look stupid. I've never thought of you as that person.
Yeah, no, me neither. And in general, I want to point out, I've never said it. So, for example, there's a lot of discussion after this episode on the fan page this week, and since this episode dropped, still kind of the same people that still don't buy the time cards. And it was like, this episode was kind of a litmus test for me, because what I kept hearing is like, well, I want to see what the other witnesses said. I want to see what Princella and LaShawn and Cornelius testified to. Then they get it. And it still lines up with, and they still don't believe it. But in that discussion, listener Chris popped in and said, I don't think the timesheet's manipulated or fabricated. I think the timesheet's legit. I think the restaurant people are telling the truth. I just think that after Jody got home, Jody left and went and killed Mario. Based on the two, like, and I told him in that chat, I was like, that's fair. I disagree, but that's a fair discussion. To me, that's an intellectually honest position. You can try and make that argument, right? Because there's some ambiguity there, whether the crime happened at 12:40 or whether it happened before midnight. There's was the 20 or 30 minutes that Cornelia says that they were hanging out talking. What if that was only 5 minutes? Or there's room to have that discussion. That's a fair discussion as far as I'm concerned. To look at all Princella from beginning to end. I came in, it was 11 o'clock. The lights were on. I pointed at the clock and said, what the hell? It's 11 o'clock. Why are all these lights still on? Why is every light in the restaurant on? They're still working. There's a ton of dishes still to do. LaShawn and Cornelius both say we left around midnight. They don't have the exact time. You wouldn't expect them to have the same time.
Yeah.
The timesheet says Jody clocked out at 12:05. And then you have Kenya signed off on the timesheet. She verified that on Saturday that, this is like 100% of the evidence all supports that the timesheet is valid, that time is the right time. And literally all of it. So to say that, and I've heard theories that, and I think somebody's like, I think what they're trying to imply without saying it is that I'm lying about the fact that the timesheet was in the prosecutor's file. Because like their theory was, if I understood it right, was that, Jody got that timesheet. Like Jody's the one that presented the timesheet. I don't know where Jody would have got like the form, the timesheet form in jail, and then like forged the signature of Kenya and wrote all this stuff into it. But no, that basically they're questioning that McGinnis ever got the timesheet. That it came from Jody, but it's like, no, it was in the prosecutor's file. That's where I got it. That's where the attorney general got it.
Yeah. And
as I told them, if you don't believe me, file a FOIA request with the prosecutor's office and you can find it in the file. Like that's where it came from. So when we're talking about not being intellectually honest, Chris, and anybody else that's listening, it's when you are bombarded with fact after fact after fact that all support the exact same conclusion, and you insist that there's a different conclusion without citing a single piece of evidence. There's a lot of, well, what if this person lied? Or what if Jody did this? But there's no evidence to support the fact that any of that stuff happened. Not that I've seen, not that anybody's presented to me. So I just want to clear that up. I've never had a problem with anybody. And if you look on the fan page, you'll see me having, I have more discussions on the fan page with people that think Jody's guilty, or whoever we're talking about every season is guilty, than I do with people that are innocent, the people that are just agreeing with me. I want to have those conversations with people that are coming from the other side. But you got to give me a logical argument and evidence, not just keep insisting that the way it feels to me is I've decided Jody's guilty. Therefore, that's the evidence that time card can't be right.
Right.
Like that's it. Like the time card just can't be right, because if the time card's right, then Jody's innocent. And that means, and I don't even think it means I'm wrong. It means Bob's right. And that can't be okay. Right. For that particular group.
So I wonder what would happen if those files, those missing pieces of evidence, those things that could implicate McGinnis, if those things come to light by virtue of another person having the file, by the other institution having the file, by the work that, the attorney, who's the conviction integrity unit, like there are other places where that stuff could make itself known that doesn't have anything to do with you. So I guess I'm curious, like, what will happen then? And if that never happens, then that never happens. But I'm just wondering, like, would that change anything? I don't know.
I don't know. And ultimately, it doesn't matter. I mean, people are going to have their opinions, and that's going to be their opinions. I've come to the conclusion that there are people that are just, it doesn't matter what they find. Like we could show them, I feel like I could show them rock solid evidence, irrefutable evidence that the crime happened at 11:45, and I think they would still insist that Jody's guilty.
Yeah. Well, Chris says the hands, that the time card is a hand scribbled note. And by the way, we do have some questions about the time card, including one of Chris's. In fact, let's start with that because Chris, you put it very nicely in the follow-up. Chris says, I'm guessing the timesheet evidence wasn't all that compelling. How much of what was presented in this episode was heard by the jury?
I mean, it was all trial testimony. So everything was heard by the jury.
And Chris just adds, if it's a hand scribbled note with a sort of, not sure what that word is supposed to be, Chris. It's a Stramfish signature. Um, that it looks like a child signed it or something. That's
Well,
the
and that's
characterization of it. What do you think about that?
the discussion, right? That people are having. They're pointing out, they're looking at the way it's written, and that that Jody said Sean punched me out, but there's no punch out. It's it's a handwritten thing, and it's scribbled, so maybe it's for or something like that. Like that's the kind of arguments we're getting, is like looking at it and trying to think, well, that could mean this, and maybe it could mean that, but there's no evidence that it does mean that. It was what I was told was that McGinnis came back 2 days later, either on Sunday or Monday, asked for the timesheet. Kenya gave him the timesheet, and then that was verified to me because when I got the case file from the prosecutor that was given to the prosecutor by McGinnis, the timesheet was in there. So I don't understand where this argument comes from. That like she said, Kenya signs like a 12-year-old. Well, that's her signature. I don't know. Unless the implication is that Jody forged it and Kenya didn't notice when she gave it to him, or is Kenya lying about it, and Princella and Sean are lying about Kenya giving it to. I don't know, but this is what I'm saying. There's no evidence to support that. There's no. It's like you can look at it and be like, well, I think that might mean maybe, but there's no evidence to suggest that at all. And
Yeah.
I even posted on the fan page an email that McGinnis had sent to Princella. It was like after the trial, she had emailed him and was saying hey, Joe, how could this be? Jody didn't leave work until midnight, and they were just learning then that this timesheet was in a file somewhere. And McGinnis's response back to her said that, look, I believe all of you. I'll show you. I'm going to send you the notes that you said. Cornelia said that they left around 11:50. Sean thinks it was 11:45. This was all a year later. And Princella said that they were there at 11. And McGinnis essentially says in there, I believe Jody didn't leave work till midnight, but it doesn't matter because the crime didn't happen until 12:40. So all the people here, I can tell you from lawyers, I can tell you all the way up to the Attorney General's office, no one has ever questioned the validity of that timesheet. No one ever, until this group on Facebook now that is questioning it. And it's okay. It's okay to question it. But if you want me to be on board with it and agree with you, you have to show me some evidence that happened. What I see is all of the witnesses saying that it's legit. I see that the witnesses saying it was given to McGinnis, and I see it in the prosecutor's file, that the prosecutor got from McGinnis. So I can't just jump to that conclusion because there's no evidence to support it.
I guess, yeah. I mean, what you're saying right now is helpful because I hadn't thought of it in terms of McGinnis saying, I don't think any of these people are lying or wrong. I'm just saying that the crime happened in such a way that all of that can be true and Jody can be responsible, which is what, it sounds like some folks who are leaning guilty also think. So then the burden becomes not on the alibi or questioning the time card anymore. It becomes about all of those other factors that seem to lend credibility, or certainly a lot of question about when that guy's shift got off, how long, someone sat in their car, whether or not a police officer or a detective reported something happening when it did that is in conflict with the new official story.
Yeah.
But so that's not even a thing.
My thing is, like I said, we can have the argument about if Jody got off at 12:05, left at 12:05, and still had enough time to commit the murder. I don't believe they did. And it's about 6-7 minute drive back to the apartment. Jody and Cornelius both say they had a conversation. Let's say that is even 10 minutes. And then Jody goes inside, goes to bed. Sherelle leaves. And then for Jody then to drive the 7 minutes to the crime scene. And again, as I broke down in the episode, it's like, if you believe Jody did it, then you have to believe Victoria's version of the story. Mm-hmm. She's the only version of the story that would indicate you, because like I said in the episode, you can't believe Shamika because Shamika's a whole group of people out there with Mario. Right. So it has to be Victoria's version. In that version, the car drives slow, parks in the back, walks up to Mario, has a pleasant conversation with Mario that turns into an argument, and then the gunshots. which means Jody would have to be there by like 12:05, which means Jody would have to leave their apartment, or excuse me, Jody would be there by like 12:35 at a minimum, and then Jody would have to leave their apartment then by like close to 12:30, or before 12:30. Like, you start to really run out of time for that 12:40 timeline if you have any amount of time for Jody and Cornelius to talk in there. That's a conversation you can have.
Right.
If you believe it was 12:40, and if you believe they left at 12:05, is there enough time there? But as far as like the timesheet being fake, I'm sorry, I don't mean to demean people, but that's nonsense.
Mm-hmm.
It's nonsense. There's no evidence to support it.
Well, isn't there in Victoria's original statement too? Didn't she say there was a crowd of people out there?
Not in her original statement. According to what we heard Jody say on the stand in the 911 call, they said, "Did you see the person that left?" And they said, "I don't know. There's a whole bunch of people down there." Is what Jody said. Victoria said on the call, but we of course don't have that recording. Hoping that we'll get it on Friday.
Yeah, I mean that's nuts. That's hard to have to say. This person said this about this thing that was played in court, but we don't have any record of it. I mean, all of that is just that's just a mess.
And this is what I wonder too. That crowd that believes that Jody is guilty of this, would it change their thoughts anymore? That we have Chamika saying there was a crowd of people out there with Joe or with Mario. If we get the recording and we hear Victoria saying there's a crowd of people out there, or there was a crowd of people out there, at that point, will we finally let go of the fact that it wasn't Jody out there all by themselves?
Don't know.
We'll see.
I mean, all this sort of reminds me of Pinion Pines too, which is that ultimately, if you feel that the boys had enough time to get up there and do it, then you feel that way, and like that's all you need to say you've decided they're guilty. It doesn't matter what the rest of the evidence is.
Right.
Okay. Well, this staying with the time card stuff, and we've touched on this. Maybe we've got the concrete answers out there already in this episode, and I just am not clocking it the right way. But Kathy says, "Do you know why the time card wasn't entered into evidence to support the alibi witness's testimony?"
So listener Joni just shared. I don't know where she got it. If it was like, in the court docket where from like the appeals, I don't know. But they had a letter from Ernie White, who was Jody's attorney, and it was like during the appeals process. I think Jody must have written them a letter asking about the time card, and White in that letter said that he never received a time card from the state. So that I would assume was the biggest reason. And remember, Jody did have Jody got a copy of the police file while they were in jail awaiting trial. And I don't know if that came from because because Jody went through 4 attorneys. So there was Paul Jancha. I don't remember the name of the second guy that took over, but that was for the robbery. Because remember, Jody wasn't charged with this murder until April or May. So he was only in jail they were only in jail for the robbery. And then they got Renfro was their attorney that was going to represent them in the murder. In a letter from Renfro, they showed another Giovanna, I think another listener had shared, and from that same file, a letter from Renfro said that he does recall there being a time card that they were going to use in the defense, but didn't remember anything else about it. But then White said White never got it. So personally, I think it didn't come out because White either didn't have it, or because it wasn't turned over to them by the state, or he was just completely unprepared. And when we read through all the trial testimony, it seems that White was incredibly unprepared for any of this. Jody was far more, because Jody had been studying that case file the whole time they were in jail. So Jody had a better grip on the investigation than White did.
But nothing that rose to the level of ineffective assistance of counsel, presuming.
So far.
Yeah. Okay. Yes, we did. I did see some of that, and Jessica, adding to that, says, was Cornelius's time card ever obtained, since he was Jody's ride home? Maybe this could further corroborate or disprove the story and help us in some certain direction that way.
No, it never was. And I had a discussion on the Facebook page about that as well with somebody, and they were kind of putting that on It seemed like they were kind of putting that on like Jody or the restaurant staff. Like, well, why didn't we ever see Cornelius's? They could have verified with Cornelius's. Why didn't we see Cornelius's? What we have to understand is we're all looking at this in hindsight. The restaurant staff, they are not lawyers. We're talking about LaShawn and Princella and Cornelius. They're not lawyers. They're not investigators. They have no idea what's going on with this trial. They had no contact with anybody until 2 weeks before trial when they're first contacted. Now, what LaShawn knew is that he had already told the police that Jody was working during the time of the murder. And I don't think I think they only found out later from, if I understand right, from Princella, they only found out later from Kenya that Kenya had given the time. I think that's why, a lot of the appeal stuff happened, because Kenya's like, no, I gave that to McGinnis, like, or whoever the detective was, gave the time card to them. But for the three of them, the police that they assume are doing the right thing come to them before trial and say, what time did you see Jody? Princella says, I was there at 11, and they still had a bunch of work to do when I left at like 11:15. And then, Cornelius said, I think we left around midnight. Sean says, I think we left around midnight. And that was it. So as far as they know, and then they weren't because there were witnesses, they were sequestered during the trial. They didn't see what was coming out during the trial. They got on the stand. They said what they knew. So I think people have this idea in their mind that they should have been investigating this and finding they didn't know. It was not their job, responsibility, nor did they know that they needed to go find more evidence to support this time. There's no way for them to have known that.
Well, and also, again, if the rhetoric that's out there is none of that matters because the crime happened after Jody got off, then why would you know to chase it down anyway? Because you wouldn't know everything that we now know about the discrepancy there, right?
Well, and what does Cornelius's time card give us? He said he got he said he clocked out at 10 and said he stayed around for a couple hours.
Yeah. So it probably wouldn't tell us much anyway.
So it would just be speculation again. Even if we got it and it said 10, he says he stayed around for a couple hours. So it's all speculation as to...
Yeah, it really wouldn't make a difference if he actually was, if his memory was right about that he got off that early. I kind of lost my train of thought there. The point I was making was the person that should have gotten Cornelius's time card is McGinnis. It was his job to verify all that. And to your point, Janet, as far as them not knowing the time of the murder, Princella and LaShawn and Cornelius didn't know that they said the murder happened at 12:40 until after the trial. And remember, LaShawn doesn't remember the exact conversation they had, but what he remembers about that conversation hours later that morning is that they came in looking for Jody, and they said this person was killed. This is what time it happened. And he's like, no, we were still here. We didn't. Jody was here with me until after that. So when they went to trial and told that, as far as they knew, that was the alibi. They found out after the trial was over, and you can see it in that email from McGinnis even. He's like, well, it doesn't matter because the crime happened at 12:40. And that's when they're like, wait, what? And there was even more emails back and forth. Princella had sent me that she sent to other officers and stuff along the way. Where she's like, I always thought the crime happened at 11:45. We all thought it happened at 11:45.
And the reason they thought that could only be that someone told them that it mattered when they were checking Jody's alibi.
Yeah. So they fully thought they were going in there and they were telling them what time Jody left. As far as they knew, that should have alibied Jody because from what the information they had. So it wasn't like now when we're looking back on this where we're like, well, we could do this and this to verify this and corroborate this. And this could, fill these time gaps in. They didn't know any of that stuff. And Jody didn't know any of that stuff. You even heard Jody, if you read their testimony, Jody at one point says, the crime happened at 11:45 or whatever, because according to Jody in the original police file they had, there was more in it. There was an interview with Sonia Lucas. There was an interview with Sonia Lucas's stepdad. All that stuff was not in the file that was given to Discovery before trial. I have no way of verifying that, but that's what Jody says. But Jody was under the impression still when they got to court that the murder happened at 11:45. They even say it in their testimony that, this happened at what? I don't know, 11:45 or whatever. This is when this happened. So it was kind of a surprise to everyone on the defense side when they came out and said it happened at 12:40.
And just to draw a circle around this, I'm sorry, I know this has been asked before, but we don't know how hard or easy would it be to get a copy of the police file when you're in jail? if you're the suspect.
I don't know. The way Jody, I'll have to ask them again about, I asked a long time ago, where some of the records that because I had a version of the police file that came from Jody's appellate attorneys, like through their advocates and stuff, that it got passed down through to me before I filed the FOIAs to get the official record. And Jody had said that they had a family member that got the copy. It sounded like they got the copy of it from the attorney and then took a copy of it and took it to jail and gave it to Jody. That Jody didn't get it directly from the attorney, that it got it from a family member in between there somehow.
Okay. Valeria says, can you please clarify the relationship between Kenya, LaShawn, and Princella? I believe they were all siblings. Could you also clarify what contact you've had with Kenya, either direct or with her siblings?
Yeah, they're all siblings. I have not personally spoken to Kenya. So I have, you've heard me. I mean, I've interviewed LaShawn and Princella. And with Kenya, there was one point she was up here visiting. She doesn't live in the state. She lives across the country. But she was up here visiting, and we were trying to come up with a time for me to try to meet up with her, and it didn't work out. And then actually, before we came on today, I asked Princella if she can put me in contact with Kenya, because of the questions that are coming up about her. I would like to hear directly from her exactly how this works out. Because the only, when I talked to LaShawn, in my interview with him, I was, we talked about the time card. He said, if I saw it, I could tell who what the handwriting is. I sent him the time card, and he said, oh yeah, that's Kenya's. And I said, well, was Kenya there? That, because I think Jody had said they thought they remembered Kenya be like passing through that night. I asked Sean, is Kenya there? He talked to Kenya and said yes. And that's all my contact that I've had has only been passed through LaShawn. I haven't spoken to Kenya directly about it. So I'm going to try to talk to her to answer some of these questions for people about Kenya. My understanding was she didn't, she played a very, very little role in all of this. She wasn't there working that night. Maybe she passed through. I don't know if that was communicated clearly through everybody what we were asking there. She had just verified the timesheet and then gave it to McGinnis, and that was it. And then she had moved away, so she wasn't there. McGinnis, and then there's another one where people are like, "Well, why have we never heard from Kenya?" And as though like there's something something nefarious going on, like at the time of trial with Kenya. And then again, it's the same thing as with Cornelius. The person who should have contacted Kenya about the timesheet is McGinnis. He's the one. But again, McGinnis never questioned the time card. According to them, he got it directly from Kenya. So I would assume that's why he never contacted Kenya to say, is this legit? Because he knows it's legit. But if he had a question about it, that would have been his job to contact Kenya about the time card if there was any question about it, and he never did.
Got it. Liz says, I'm very impressed by Princella as a witness, business owner, and all around and apparently upstanding individual. It's been mentioned several times that she was running for local office. Whatever happened with that? Did she ever move on to a role in local government?
I don't know. I don't know if I don't think she was ever mayor. She's kind of a pillar in the community. She runs several organizations within City Benton Harbor. She runs a newspaper that she's in charge of for like local news in Benton Harbor and stuff like that. So she's always been very involved in the community, and part of different volunteer groups and stuff within the community. I don't know if she ever actually held a seat in office or not.
Got it. This is our Giovanna that we were talking about earlier. Giovanna says, this is from a previous episode. I believe if it's been asked and answered, apologies. Why would the state offer Leon a deal to turn on Jody? Leon was in jail during the time of the murders. How would it have been possible for Leon to turn on Jody and testify against them?
Because the main point of prosecution against Jody was the robbery. They presented little to no evidence that Jody was actually part of the. I mean, you guys have the transcripts. You can read them. Like the entirety of the evidence that Jody was part of the murder, the entirety of it was Victoria saying that she saw a tall, skinny man with a ponytail running away, and Sonia Lucas saying that Mario in his dying breath said that JoJo did it. Like, you understand, like for all the people that are really leaning into Jody's guilty, that's all of it. Like, there's not even circumstantial evidence outside of that. That's the entire case of them for the murder. Those are the only things that put Jody at that crime scene. And of course, we know Sonia has already recanted and said that story was absolute bullshit. That came from McGinnis, who pressured her into saying it. Victoria's statement, I think, is bullshit, considering she said she couldn't see. There's no everything we've already said, right? There's no light on that building. She already said she couldn't see the person. She already said there was plastic on the windows, and then she came out with a description later. But that's the entirety of the evidence that they presented against Jody. They got DNA on the bullet. Who did it come back to? Not Jody, Andrew Wayne Bell. That's who that came back to. You got other witnesses that didn't testify at trial that said they saw a group of people there. You've got the sound test of the car. Like that's all there was. The majority of the trial was convincing the jury that Jody was responsible for the robbery, or was part of the robbery, and that was the motive for the murder. So that's what they wanted Leon to testify to, was that Jody absolutely was a part of the robbery, so that they could drive that nail home.
Right. Liz says, when will we hear directly from Jody next? I would love to hear more about their reflection on their testimony, including the parts pertaining to their alibi for the night of the murder, as opposed to the night of the robbery.
Yeah, I will try to arrange that sometime soon. I've emailed a little bit back and forth with Jody, but we've been so dug into getting through the trial right now that we haven't talked. And Jody moved units in the middle of all that, and they have a little bit different schedule now. But I'll try to get Jody on the phone now too, especially because we're coming up on the end of the trial. We're trying to figure out like how much more evidence do we have to go through before we, or we're going to wrap the season or continue it on or see what else we can find. So I'll reach out to Jody and see if we can find a time to do that.
Cool. Keisha says, I am at a loss for questions because this one seems so obvious that Jody could not have done this crime. I just want to jump to getting the conviction thrown out. Do we have to prove who really did it?
No. I mean, there's not a lot I can share right now, but no, I do not think that we do.
Great. Well, Daniel made a specific reference to the prosecutor in the Kristen Smart murder trial. Of course, you featured Chris on your own podcast, True Crime Binge, but this idea of statement on conspiracy. So in this case, he's comparing what you said in the episode to sort of like, if this, then this, if this, then this, if this, then this, there's your conspiracy. That was a similar case that was made by the prosecutor. So I'm not sure how familiar you are with that case, but essentially Daniel is complimenting you on your discussion at the very end of the episode, sort of saying, if you believe that this alibi is bullshit, then you have to believe all of these other things as well. And does that not seem like a stretch?
Yeah, I mean, I'm familiar a bit with the case, not so much with the trial or how the prosecutor presented it, but that, as far as like saying it's obvious, that's how I feel about it. And I said on the fan page yesterday, I was like, I truly, some of these discussions feel like I'm in the Twilight Zone, and maybe they feel that way about me too. I mean, but like, to me, I've never seen a better alibi in the cases that we've covered. I've never seen one that was so clear that you have LaShawn, Princella, Cornelius, and Sherelle, and of course Jody, all saying the exact same thing, and a timesheet that confirms everything that they said, signed off by another person, Kenya, that all show that Jody could not have committed this murder.
If the murder happened when it was originally purported to have been committed.
In my opinion, even if the murder happened at 12:40. And again, the argument, if you read what was stipulated to, which, obviously I have my problem with that, but the stipulation was that Victoria's 911 call was at 12:40, which would mean the murder happened even before that, whether it's a minute, 2 minutes, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But even, for me, it's like, gets off at 12:05. If they leave immediately and they get to the house at 12:12, and they have even a 10-minute conversation at 12:22, and then go into the house, and even if it's even that whole thing, getting into the house, having the discussion, laying down, and her leaving, is only a total of 5 minutes, which all this is cutting tons of time out. Now it's 12:27, and then Jody's got to go downstairs and go get in the car. So even if that's 2 minutes, that's 12:29. And then a 7-minute drive over to 784 Broadway, assuming for somehow Jody knows that that's where Mario just happens to be hanging out. I lost track of where I'm at, but I think that we're at like 12:37, 12:40 before Jody could even possibly get there. And then you have to have the park in the car, the walking up, the conversation, the argument, the shots starting, the murder, the shots going into the house, Mario dying, Jody fleeing, and then the 911 call at 12:40. Like even at 12:40, it doesn't work. If I can make a timeline there that worked, then I would say, well, if this, then this. But it's like, even at the most extreme, if we ignore all the evidence that it happens before midnight, even at the most extreme, if the 911 call was at 12:40, it still doesn't work.
But this is someone's life that we're talking about. How can we ignore the evidence that suggests that the crime took place so much earlier? You can't ignore it. You
No.
can't throw it away. That's not how our justice system is supposed to work. But
No.
if you feel, I guess I'm interested because I have seen some of the discussion on Facebook, and it does seem that there are people who believe that Jody is guilty, who also believe that this police department is capable of misconduct. So I guess that's my question for, you is like, do you have a sense that the overwhelming majority of people who are saying it clearly Jody is guilty for XYZ, are they also stipulating to the possibility that there could be some sketchy stuff going on in that department? Because I feel like we have a lot of stories, a lot of anecdotes, and a lot of facts suggesting that.
Yeah, I mean, there's no question. I don't know how anybody could question that this department is capable of that kind of corruption. We've seen it before. We literally heard a former Benton Harbor cop interviewed talking about the shit that they were doing to frame people.
Yeah.
So it's not uncommon at all.
In fact, what's this Sunday's episode going to be?
In fact, this Sunday's episode is with Jakari Lariat. You guys are going to hear about all his story that happened this year. It was not Benton Harbor cops. It was state troopers working in the city of Benton Harbor. It's an insane story. Jakari is an amazing guy. It's an amazing story. So make sure you tune in to hear that on Sunday. And Janet, we are right on time for your hard out to go watch Brandon do his improv or be part of it.
Performing in it. Yeah.
Excellent. All right. So we're going to let you guys go. Make sure you tune in on Sunday. I'm taking off tomorrow to head down to Dallas. And again, if any of you guys have any video footage from Ed's release, send that to me. It may find its way onto the small screen.
Very exciting.
Coming up. With all that being said, we'll talk to you guys next week.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye, guys.
Well, you didn't like small screen?
That was funny.
Not the big screen, just the small screen. All right, Janet, we better let you go so you can go.
I feel like I had the worst brain fog ever in this particular follow-up, so I'm so sorry. And sorry to Erica. Can't apologize to her because I've already stopped recording.
No, I thought you were fine. Everything was good.
I just stayed out of the way.
A little like blah.
Thought we were flowing. Everybody in the chat, thank you guys so much for joining us. We're going to make a quick out here because I have to get packed before I go to work in the morning, before I leave work and get on a plane, go do other work.
Cool.
We'll give our love to Kim and Ed, please.
I will do that if I see them. I don't know what's going to happen. We'll see.
They'll talk to them no matter what.
Bye, streamers.
Bye, guys.
Bye, guys.